Death is close. Your courage will fail. Your friends will abandon you.
Yo, what up guys, this is Mosen, and I'm coming at you with a guide, a boss guide, on Cthun. I found this footage from one of our kills, earlier kills, but I thought I'd share this, but instead of just putting up the normal video, I thought I'd just explain the fight a little bit, and maybe it helps one person or the other. So let's jump right into it, because it's kind of a tricky fight, and I thought that's why maybe it's a little bit more tricky than others, and maybe this will help one or two people. But yeah, I'll just make it as short as possible as I can. You're gonna see all the footage in a second of how we kill it, and then I'm gonna comment over it, and I'm not gonna cut the fight, so you can actually see what's happening and how our movement is and what we're doing. So depending on what role you play, you can it might help you. So first, let me say that there's two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. In phase 1, it's really important that there's assigned groups and that members stay further away than 10 yards to each other. That's very, very important. Otherwise, there's a I-beam that chains through the raid. The first target gets hit, then the second for double that amount, and then the third target is a guaranteed kill, and it's like huge damage. So it chains through 3 targets, and it only chains if you are closer than 10 yards. So that's very important. So first of all, I'll explain the details in the fight. Just to get ready for the fight, I'm just gonna explain how the pull is, because the pull is really the most tricky part. First, you want to divide your raid into 5-man groups of 2 melee, 2 ranged, and 1 healer. You know, if that fits with your raid setup, preferably not more than 2 melee. If there's 3, okay, but you really want to go maximum of 2 melee in one group, and then each group gets an assigned spot. As you can see in the picture, each group has an assigned spot, and then you basically rotate to the opposite side when there's an I-beam being cast, and on the next I-beam you keep rotating and you'll end up in the same position where you started. So it's A, where you started, and then B, after one I-beam, and then you go back. So basically you have to remember one A and B, 2 spots. So for the pull, we always did it like this. There's different ways to do this. This is just how we did it, and you'll see it in the footage. So the raid waits outside. We have a hunter on the other side of the entrance that will run in first. He'll tank the 2 first death raids, or lightning, nature rays, beams, whatever. He'll take the first one. The raid moves in with him, and then we always left out group 7 and 8, just so we don't have too many people running in at the same time. To avoid more fuck-ups, basically. And it's important that group 7 and 8 are also spread already within those 10 yards to each other, because the shit can go basically around the corner. At least that's what we experienced on that server. So for phase 1, before we go into the footage, I'll go back to the groups real quick. So the reason why there's 2 melee, as you can see on the right side, there's 1 melee on the eye itself. You will just melee it down, and 1 melee behind that. Now you want to put the lower damage on the eye, because that person is usually like people with nightfall, tanks with nightfall. In phase 1, every tank can just use that nightfall because you're not going to tank anything. And then the higher damage melee, we want to put him behind that 1 melee on the eye, because those people are. You can do it the way you like, but that's how we did it, because tentacles are going to appear, and the person in the second row is supposed to quickly switch and kill those other tentacles, basically. Behind that, ranged in the third row, and the healer in the third row, as you can see in the picture, and behind that the same. And if every group does that and gets into position quickly, then that's almost half the fight. But the pull, if you get that one straight and everyone gets into position, then there's an I-beam, and then you rotate, and that's basically it. So let's jump right into the fight. You can see us standing here at the corner, and we are getting ready for the pull. So as you can see, these are all but 7 and 8. The hunter is running in, and takes the first beam, the second beam, and now Cthun targets the third person. That person instantly runs out, and we get into position. So I was, I don't know, like group, I don't know what group I'm in, but I was the star, so I was assigned on the opposite side of the entrance. And I'm on the eye because I'm a tank, and so I went there instantly. So that's my position. You can see on the Cthun Warner that from left to right there's my raid members, and the Cthun Warner is green, so that means I'm clear to left, right, behind me. What you don't see right now is that the group is behind me right now. So for the pull also, what is really, really important is that everyone, like the hunter runs in first and the raid runs on the left side. Everyone stays clumped, and then you all go in together. The hunter takes the first beam, you run towards the eye as quickly as you can. All stay together still. He takes the second beam, everyone stays still together. And then you still stay together and run into the eye, and one person will get targeted by the death ray or by the eye beam. Well, not the eye beam, but like, you know, the nature cast. And that person instantly has to run out towards the wall. And that's just something that needs to be done. And that's just something that you can't really carry, because the person itself has to go out. And that's the thing, right? If the thing chains 3 times, the whole raid dies. So if that person doesn't go out quick enough, everybody dies. So that is the pull, and that's why also the pull is probably the hardest thing about this fight, really. What will happen next is there's a lot of tentacles spawning. We call that the raid party. And yeah, basically everyone has to switch on the tentacles, right? And you can leave your position when this eye beam is going on. So that's those are the 2 mechanics. So the first thing is the pull, that's important. And then the actual mechanic of phase 1 is pretty easy. You DPS it, you stay 10 yards apart from each other. And then occasionally it will say Cthun does an eye beam, the red glare, the dark glare. When he does that, he will turn it to a direction. You can see where the center of the eye is, and that's where the beam is gonna go. So you have enough time to get out of there. It's really easy. And then everyone needs to stop DPS on the eye and switch on the tentacles, because as you saw, this claw tentacle, the fat one here, when it spawns, like if it's not killed fast enough, it will go back into the ground, spawn on other players, and knock them into the air. And that might, although you're safe in a safe position, that spawn on you might knock you into the dark glare, and then people call you noob, although you were safe, but it will knock you into the air and into the glare. So that's very important. The priority in killing is those eye tentacles though, because as you can see, they're mind flaying. So as soon as the rape party starts, everybody wants to switch on the eye tentacles. And very important for the DPS, don't just DPS it, go there and give it a kick. So it stops mind flaying and doesn't mind flay a healer down while you DPS it down, okay? So counterspell, kick, etc. After that, go for the claw tentacles. Very important that all tentacles are down, don't do anything else. Then you go back into position, keep DPSing the eye. And eventually this will transition into phase 2. Now as you can see, in phase 2 everybody will just meet in the northern part of the map where the 2 gongs are, and then bigger versions of those tentacles spawn. Place a tank left, right and center, and yeah, those tentacles will spawn. Cthun itself will not be taking any damage. You can judge wisdom on it though, and people can want it to regain mana, that works. And the very important part is, as you can see, there's a big eye tentacle now. And this one, they actually hit pretty hard, the claw ones and these eye tentacles. And for the eye tentacles, it's very, very important that you interrupt their casts. So people need to speak when they interrupt. And in the worst case, just give it a stun. Because otherwise those big eye tentacles are going to chain through the whole raid, and like half your raid's gonna die and you can do it all again. The big claw tentacles that you can see that are spawning here, they hit really, really hard. So what we did is they spawned, and we had one paladin stunned immediately at the start. and the tanks picked it up, and so everyone could get into position because they also knock up when they spawn, and so all the healers can walk into range and actually hit somebody. Now the next mechanic is the stomach in phase 2. And that is actually probably the hardest part if you have a lot of people that never talk in raid, right? Because it requires people to give feedback. So it's actually not a really hard mechanic. Basically, too long didn't read. You're gonna, as you can see, you're gonna get eaten, and you're gonna be in the stomach of Cthun. There's acid, and you're gonna stay in there as long as like 7-8 stacks or so. And then you want to DPS the tentacles down in there. And if there's no healer with you, DPS it a bit and then get the fuck out. If you stand on the circle here, you get teleported out again. So you can choose when to get out. Nature prots help, of course. And this is the part that's the hardest, really. Because here you want to coordinate, because the mechanic is like this. If you DPS both of the tentacles in the stomach down, then Cthun actually gets vulnerable and everyone needs to switch on him. So you want to kill one tentacle in the stomach, DPS it down, and bring one to like 20%. Then you want to say, okay, 20% tentacle stomach. Then you want to kill the big tentacles in the normal room. Once they are down, give them in the stomach the go. They will make Cthun vulnerable. Everyone gets out. And then really everyone needs to pull their cooldowns, rage potions, etc. and get as much damage into Cthun as possible, and he'll take a lot of damage. So as you can see, we're DPSing Cthun now, popping some rage potions. I'm using my Nightfall to get as much caster damage in as possible. And yeah, so you got like a couple of seconds here. We usually brought him to like 40%, 45. That's all fine. The key to this fight is really that no one dies in phase 1. And you reduce the deaths in phase 2. In phase 1, no one should die. There's nothing really going on. If you get the pull straight, then in phase 1, no one should die. Once you got a lot of damage in on Cthun, tentacles spawn, you tank them. Remember on the claw tentacles, just get a hammer on that, or some rogue stun. And the second hard part about phase 2 is that there's still the raid parties of the small tentacles. You might have seen it here once in a while, left and right. That means the small tentacles with the mind flay and stuff, they will spawn around Cthun. And what we did is we had all the casters instantly switch on them, and all the melee instantly switch on the ones that were close to us, and hunters, mages went for the ones that were far away, counterspelled them, bursted them down, and then they went back to the northern part, because if they stay in the south, the big tentacles can spawn on them, and then those big ones are in the south, and the tanks can't reach them. And if that's a big eye tentacle, obviously you can't interrupt the cast, and it's gonna chain through the whole raid. You switch to them, interrupt the mind flay, get the close ones, mages, hunters, go for the ones in the south, counterspell them, burst them down as quickly as possible, and instantly back to the north, so nothing spawns on you. And once you've done that, you repeat the stomach phase. As you can see in the video, there's a couple of people that died here. But yeah, interrupt the mind flay tentacles, the big ones, stun the claws, and then he will be vulnerable again. And in the end, you pop all your stuff again, and hopefully have enough DPS to bring him down. Recommend consumables for this, aside from the usual stuff, are obviously the nature protection potions in case you do get a chain of the nature beam in phase 1, and for phase 2 actually shadow prot pots, because they reduce the mind flay damage. In case shit hits the fan, it's good to have those up. So you pop a nature prot before phase 1, and then in the transition to phase 2 you use your shadow prot. Titan flask is kind of required for everybody, because if you don't have enough HP for this fight, then stuff will kill you pretty easily, and you really need to survive the first initial nature beam. I hope this helped somebody out there. Maybe someone was struggling or wanted to check out the fight in advance before they go into the raid. That is very good to do as a new raider. So yeah, if I forgot anything, just put it in the comments below. No one's perfect. Maybe you have even better tips, because I know there's guilds that did it differently. I left more groups out, etc. So yeah, anything you have to say in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. I would appreciate a subscription or a follow on Twitch or a like on the video. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.